Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of Matchett and the Other Guy, gentle listener, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Ours, of course, is me, Steve Matchett, and my friend Kevin Fielden, and we're going to have a conversation as we sit here at the side of Lake Wylie in Charlotte, North Carolina. And as always, I have no idea what sparks the conversation. Kevin does. So, Kevin, spark the conversation.
Well, 'tis the season. Their lights are twinkling and the halls are decked with boughs of holly.
Oh.
So I wanted to hear how things might have been in England and such around this holly time of the year.
Yes. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that the phrase "the holidays" to me is very much an Americanism. We would, in England, never refer to it as the holidays. It was always Christmas, which embraced everything, but it was always referred to Christmas. And the first time I heard the phrase "the holidays," I had to work out to find out. Oh, it's a combination of everybody's holidays coming at the same time. I like that. It's a very inclusive phrase, but it's something that never really happened over in England. The holidays were always Christmas. I have very, very fond memories of Christmas growing up in England. As we've chatted about before, whether during our podcast or just in general, Kevin, I come from very much working class, blue collar folks, if you like, and we never had an abundance of anything, quite frankly. But that said, we were perfectly fine. We paid the bills and we were happy. But and we talked about it when we were chatting about games.
Yes.
That at Christmas time we always had presents to undo on Christmas morning, and I have very fond memories of, as a small child, waiting for Santa Claus to arrive. And I have a suspicion that Santa Claus may have been my dad at some point. But Dad would open bedroom door at about 3 o'clock in the morning and leave the presents at the foot of the bed.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In a pillowcase. They arrived in a pillowcase.
Was this a family tradition or more of an English thing?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I think it was. I have a feeling my school friends went through the same thing. And there was a few chocolates, a few sweets, a few candies in there, and a few games. And as we've chatted about before, many of them from the local Palatoy toy factory in Colville. But that's my experience. Very fond memories. How about you?
Well, like I say, I had a great. I very much enjoyed that time of the year and got excited the same. And hard to sleep the night before.
Sure.
And one of my funnier thoughts was I never believed that Santa Claus worked for free. So I still vividly remember I had to see my mom put money in one of those little Gerber baby jars and set it outside the front door.
Oh.
Because if Santa wouldn't get paid, there might be a danger of me waking up to an empty spot under the Christmas tree.
And just educate me here. Gerber baby jar.
Oh, they're the little jars of baby food.
Oh, I'm with you. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
yes,
mom would save. They're probably from when I was little, and she just saved them. They made convenient little jars,
yes.
And that's just one she happened to use.
Okay.
So it's ingrained in that memory. I had to see her put cash in the Gerber baby jar and put it outside the front door because I made sure that Santa got paid.
Yeah, and was that $1 or $2 bills rolled up? Was it?
I have no idea the amount. As long as I it was paper money.
Oh wow, yeah.
So however much she ployed me with, I wasn't quite sure, but it satisfied and went on.
Yeah, but we never had the tradition, and certainly my family, of leaving money for Santa. But
I don't think anybody else did. I don't even know where I came up with the concept.
Don't know. I mean, Santa's got bills to play like everybody else. We used to leave him a mince pie.
Oh, very good.
Which, are you familiar with mince pies?
I have
a little
heard
sort
of
of
them.
sweet.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. Yes, there was like a sweet pastry, like a little cake, with the filling was made of very sweet. So there wasn't really something that I took to really, but. Dried fruits, that sort of thing, and put into a filling.
Uh-huh.
And they still are a big popular thing in the UK now around Christmas time, mince pies. But mince pies and a glass of sherry. It was never milk and cookies. It was a mince pie and sherry. When I did notice
Well, I'd say after about 20 houses, Santa's may not be steering the direction he needs to be going.
all I'm going to say, Kevin, is that the sherry had gone the next morning.
Whether or not there was mince pie left, the sherry was bone dry.
Yeah, so whether or not it was Santa or one of his elves, or there's a slim possibility it might have been my dad that had it, or Mum had a little sip of that sherry, but it was gone the next morning. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, a couple of things you can quantify this is that y'all called Santa Father Christmas then,
Yes.
right? So there wasn't as much Santa Claus as Father Christmas.
Santa Claus, Father Christmas, or typically Santa.
Oh, really?
Santa.
Oh, okay. And then the other thing that I would think, isn't it the English tradition to have the crackers that you open and then do the paper hats and stuff? I've seen that.
Yes, and I'm always surprised that's not a thing in the States.
No.
I've not seen
not
it
at
in
all.
any other celebration, any other time of the year. I never see them. Yes, they're very much. I'm trying to think if they were a popular thing in France, and frankly, I can't really remember during my 15 years in France. I can't really remember crackers being on the table. But for those who are unfamiliar with Christmas crackers, yes, it was like a little, and quite often we used to make our own because it was
really?
the cheapest way of doing it.
Oh, that makes sense, yeah.
So if you were making your own, or to give an idea of what they are, if you're unfamiliar with them, it would be like the centre of a toilet roll or a kitchen roll, that sort of paper tube.
Yep.
And inside there would be whatever you wanted to give away. So it would be, a fairly useless little plastic toy or some nuts or whatever it would be, some little pieces of candy. And then that was wrapped in crepe paper with the ends twisted over. So you had a sort of, the centre roll was secured by the crepe paper. And if you bought a Christmas cracker, which is where cracker comes from, there was a little piece of like touch paper that when you pulled, so you'd open a Christmas cracker, we would open one between us. You'd hold one half, I would hold the other. We'd pull it together and bang,
Yep.
the little cracker thing would go off. It was basically like a strip of paper just with a little bit of, for want of a better phrase, gunpowder on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, very, tiny little piece, and it just go bang, and then one of us would win the prize in the cracker because one of us would end up with the inner tube, and one would end up just holding the end of the paper and nothing else.
Oh, okay.
So only one person of the two would win the prize of the cracker.
Somewhat similar to breaking the wishbone at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoever got the
same.
largest piece of the wishbone.
Exactly, yes, it was exactly that. Yes, but I am surprised that it's such a fun thing, Christmas crackers. I mean, I think that they're great things, but I am surprised that they've never taken off in the States.
You'll see them at certain stores. You'll see like a box of them, but I don't think they sell a lot. I think it's for those that are English and want them here, or if somebody just wants to let's do kind of an English Christmas this year or something. But I've never been to anyone's house or anything that was doing it.
I wonder if we were to visit the Biltmore Estate up in Asheville, up in the hills during their Christmas celebration
They might very
recreation.
well
I wonder
do
if they would have crackers on the table.
Good question.
Yes, we say this over and over on our little podcast here, but this is what Google and Wikipedia is for. But I would suggest that Christmas crackers are a Victorian invention. I just kind of get that impression.
Yeah, that seems like it could be.
Let's say 1850s, when Christmas. I mean, in a way, you could thank Charles Dickens for the wonderful. I think many of the wonderful traditions of Christmas are a result of Charles Dickens, frankly, with a Christmas Carol and all that sort of.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, so I would suggest that that's where crackers come from. But if you're unfamiliar with Christmas crackers, gentle listener, look them up and find out about them, because I feel you want to make some for your next holiday celebration.
Yep, I'll definitely add something.
A little bit of rustling behind us.
We have a critter in the bushes rustling to try to join us today.
What I saw the other day when I sat out here having coffee in the morning, Kevin, was a wonderful rabbit hopped out of the hedge and just sat right in front of me and was just looking at me. Wasn't afraid at all. And I asked him what he was doing that morning, but he wouldn't answer me. But unlike the white rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, he wasn't at all
Well, either that or he's the Easter Bunny and he's got the wrong holiday. He's scoping out for later months.
Yeah.
Well, family-wise, you would get up and then see what Santa had left you, and then
we'd have
spend the day playing.
We'd have Christmas tree, and we'd usually decorate the house the week before Christmas. And again, something that we'll probably get into in another episode of Matched and the Other Guy, I was very fortunate to live in this, effectively an old, abandoned is not the right way, it was a closed country house. It wasn't abandoned. So just my family lived in this huge house, and my mum and dad, my dad was the caretaker, my mum was the secretary of the country house. And when the country house closed down to be sold, the owners very kindly kept mum and dad employed to look after the place and just keep their eye on it and make sure in the winter none of the pipes froze, which meant that the boilers were always running, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, story for another day. But in terms of Christmas, we were surrounded by well over 100 acres of forest, of pine forest, oak forest, that sort of thing. And so we had no trouble whatsoever every year in getting a Christmas tree literally from our own woodland.
Go out and choose your favorite.
Would go out, cut a fir tree down, and then decorate it, bring it back to the house and decorate it. Yeah.
Probably a wonderful smell.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Yes, exactly, because pine, fresh cut pine, like most things in nature, it's got a beautiful smell. Exactly, yeah. And we used to make also, we would have our own, each member of the family had one Christmas decoration for the tree, which was their own special one. And I remember having a little snowman made out of two tiny silver globes that were glued together very roughly with two little eyes on it and some glitter. But I remember every year.
You had made?
I think I made it at school. I'm a bit vague on that now, but I seem to remember making it when I was very young at school, like 5 or 6.
Uh-huh.
But it stayed with us forever, seemingly. But every year when it was Christmas, we would take out from the loft our box of Christmas decorations, and I would long to find this little snowman in there and put him on the Christmas tree. Yeah, same for you. Did you have a Christmas tree that you decorated?
Oh yeah. We had one every year. In fact, when my sister was still kind of around, she got married when I was 5, so it wasn't a lot of crossover time. But she always wanted a real tree, so we always had a real one back then. And later we went to the artificial. But I still, that was one of the most exciting times. It was always on a Sunday, and it's probably about a month before Christmas. On whatever given Sunday, we'd be back from Sunday school and having had lunch, and we'd drag down the box. And looking back, the box seemed like it was probably 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot, but in reality, it was probably 3 by 3 by 3.
Yeah.
But I remember barely able to lean over into it and pulling stuff out, and and I knew where everything went.
Yes.
The hanging candy cane goes on this knob, and this goes here. Right. And Mom and Dad were more than happy just to let me go to town and put everything in its place. But,
and you've always had this wonderful eye for detail and attention to detail. So you would make sure that candy cane went exactly where it was the year before, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah. I'm what I guess you call a traditionalist. But
yeah.
But that's, the great memories of year after year of, doing things in kind of a ritualistic fashion, I think.
Sure.
Made it special.
Yeah. So we would get up very early in the morning, typically before Mum and Dad were up, and start to open our presents. And as we've chatted about before, I would be very, very careful and particular about undoing each present, and I would inspect each one, and so.
And they were wrapped in.
They were wrapped in Christmas paper. Yeah. Now, for those who are unfamiliar, gentle listener, with my birthday is December the 23rd. And I mention that for one very important reason, which is very close to Christmas Day. Obviously.
Very much, yes.
And the one thing that used to drive me up the wall as a kid was getting presents that were labelled Happy Birthday and Christmas.
The combined present.
Worse than that, in some ways. Now, looking back on it, just so thrilled to have anybody even remember it was my birthday was a great thrill. But at the time, when you're a kid, these things take on a great significance and importance. But my parents figured out fairly quickly that young Stephen was very unhappy about getting birthday and Christmas presents combined. So they made a special effort to make sure that I had birthday presents on the 23rd and Christmas presents on the 25th. But what they had to be very careful about, otherwise I would have a little bit of a sulk on, was please, please, please don't wrap the birthday presents in Christmas paper, which would have been the obvious thing to do because there was such an abundance. But I just remember, oh no, it's not fair that I've got birthday presents wrapped in Christmas paper. If your birthday was in July and I wrapped it in Christmas paper, how would you feel about it? It's one of those things. But
It is important to separate.
that's it. When you're 5, 6, 7 years old, yes, things are, the importance of things are different. And again, now looking back, from the tender age of 58 nearly, looking back onto those those days as a kid, of course you should just be thrilled that anybody's even remembered you're alive, quite frankly.
Well, on the 24th on Christmas Eve, did you do any family traditions the night before?
Yeah, so in our little household, of course, it went from my birthday on the 23rd directly the next day into Christmas Eve, then into Christmas Day, and then on the 26th, of course, in England, it is a day known as Boxing Day, which is
Correct.
another day of celebration. So we had quite this festive period, and on Christmas Eve, the tradition, such as it was we were allowed to stay up quite late, and I think parents were thinking, well, hopefully they'll sleep sleeping because they're tired.
Tire them out a little bit.
Not sure that worked, but and we would watch. Typically, there would be the Christmas special TV shows on at that time, and there was 2 very famous English comedians called Morecambe and Wise. And the Morecambe and Wise Christmas special used to be shown Christmas Eve. And so that was the one thing we used to sort of sit around the TV about 8
Did they do it
PM.
live or was it pre-recorded?
I think it was pre-recorded, although we were right in that period where a lot of shows were live, just because it was technically the easiest thing to do. And we'd watch those shows, and Dad would have a glass of sherry. He hardly ever drank anything, actually, Dad, and Mum hardly anything ever. But I think Dad would like to have a little glass of sherry on Christmas Eve, and watch the Morecambe and Wise show. That's my memory of it. And then we were so excited, of course, because Christmas Day was the next day, that we were kind of keen to go to bed because we knew what was coming. Yeah, was that the same?
Oh yeah,
for you?
I tried to go to bed, at a decent hour, but again, hard to get to sleep.
Not to get to sleep. Yeah.
But it kind of evolved over the time. When I was little, again, my sister was married at 5, so we would kind of just have a quiet Christmas Eve with my parents and myself.
Okay.
And then they would come over the next day, but they would spend time with her husband's family on Christmas Eve, and then later. After we kind of moved away and we're coming back to Tennessee for Christmas, we started attending the Christmas Eve celebrations with his family, and that has continued to this day. We always have a big party Christmas Eve, which is my favorite part. I mean,
Right.
It's just really, much more exciting than Christmas Day these days. So,
Yes, and Christmas lunch. In the States, is it a little bit like the 3:00 in the afternoon lunch?
it family to family.
Right.
Yeah, many will do it right at noon probably.
Yeah.
Some are 1, 2, 3 o'clock, and we're doing our Christmas dinners usually around 5 now.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Okay.
It just depends on the family.
Yeah, because I mean, it's an obvious thing to say, but the one celebration you have in the States that we don't have in England is Thanksgiving, and so you guys have kind of just got through Thanksgiving, and then no sooner have you got through Thanksgiving than Christmas is arriving.
Yeah.
So it's just so for us,
Didn't I just see you people a month ago?
yeah, that's where I was kind of going with it. It's like, you've just done this. Yes, but so Thanksgiving lunch, and again, forgive my ignorance of American culture because I'm just learning it. That strikes me as one of those lunches that seems to happen mid-afternoon, later on in the day. Or is that
Every family's
family
different on that too.
Right,
It depends, and some are really into football and want to see the game. Some
Yes.
could care less.
Yeah.
Depends on families' travel and when they're going to arrive. If they're
Yeah.
staying with you, it just varies.
And is Thanksgiving, is that more of a everybody in the family gets together for Thanksgiving more so than Christmas? Does Christmas tend to be, or the holidays, is that kind of a smaller affair in the States than Thanksgiving?
I think you might see more of a extended family gathering on Thanksgiving.
Right,
Because
that's where
people
I'm
just
going
get
with that, yeah.
busy at Christmas.
Yeah.
And they're a lot of times overwhelmed with what Santa has brought that morning, and
Yeah.
the kids don't want to leave the house anyway, and they kind of do more nuclear family I think, gatherings tend to on Christmas Day than you would say on Thanksgiving.
Are there certain things that you would expect to see on the lunch table at Thanksgiving that you would not see for Christmas and vice versa?
Well, Thanksgiving traditionally, obviously, has been the turkey.
Right.
Turkey and trimmings.
Yeah.
And you can certainly repeat that at Christmas, but do you see ham
Yes.
come up at Christmas?
Right.
And my family, when I was young, we did something totally different. My mom made what she called Swiss steak. And it was a thin, tender steak with kind of a tomatoey sauce. And it was kind of complicated to make, so she only did it the one time a year.
Okay.
But we would have twice baked potatoes that she'd shelled out and rebaked again, that type of thing. And
Yeah, wow.
those were really the only time of year we'd have them. And
Yeah.
not that you couldn't enjoy them any other time of year. It's just that's the one time a year we're going to do those.
Yes. So in England, it's absolutely tradition to have turkey at Christmas.
Well, you didn't have the Thanksgiving to compete with, so.
That's right. Yes, but I think now, with the passing of the years and different generations want to do their own thing. Of course, a lot of these things have started to become diffused or diluted, however you want to express that, and the traditions are nowhere near as traditional as they used to be. But yeah, it was absolutely traditional to have turkey, like it or not. I mean, a lot of folks think that turkey is a particularly dry bird and not sure why we're eating it. Eating it anyway.
Well, I didn't like it. I had to kind of acquire the taste. I didn't until I was probably in my teens.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for it as much as a kid. And really, we'd have Swiss steak on Christmas, and we tended to have ham on Thanksgiving back when I was younger.
Yeah,
it wasn't until we started attending other families' Thanksgivings and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It became more of the turkey side. I started to like it better.
Yeah, I don't think I'm just talking about my family now. I don't think we had ham because I don't think we could afford it. We didn't used to, those sorts of things weren't really available to us. Like we would have tinned ham. I remember seeing a lot of tinned ham,
Like
in that very peculiar sort of almost triangular looking can.
I know exactly.
I don't know why it was that shape, but it was.
It had like a key. You crank the lid back
like
on.
a spam can. It was that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Wasn't it? Yes, and please, whatever happens, don't let that key break or that thin bead of removable steel break from the can, because you were doomed if that happened. Right?
Well, there's nothing more regal on Christmas than going to the toolbox and getting out a pair of pliers and trying to yank the ham apart.
Yeah. So yes, we never had ham, but what we tended to do in later years, and I may have mentioned this before in another one of our little chats by the lake, my Auntie Phil, had a pub in Derby, Alveston, a little small town village, big village, small town, Alveston, on the edge of Derby in Derbyshire, which is very close to where we lived. And she absolutely loved Christmas. My mum always said of my Auntie Phil, she could make a party out of a bottle of pop and a bag of crisps or a bag of chips. Very easy things, and she just had this ability to have fun.
Exactly.
She did,
which is a very
it was
admirable quality.
Absolutely. So it was almost inevitable that she would end up running a pub because she just had the personality to do it. So every Christmas she would invite all her locals to, if they weren't doing other things at Christmas, to come to the pub, the Stanhope Lodge it was called in Alveston, to come to the Stanhope and have Christmas lunch there. And she would cook along with the staff, who was usually at the pub, that she would cook for 50 or 60 people.
Oh my gosh, it's probably the greatest party of the year.
Oh, it's great. I mean, as kids, can you imagine it? You're sort of running around carefree in a pub, no one bothering you, and it was great fun. And so she would join all the tables together, and she couldn't do it in one long run because the pub wasn't long enough to do it, but she'd do sort of 3 very long tables, and all friends and family and locals, and the pub would be there. And this party would go on all day long until 1, 2, maybe 3 in the morning the next day, because it was my auntie would class it as being a private party, and therefore she would open the pub. She would open the pub, and everyone would have a drink. So all of a sudden it turned into quite a long party Christmas Day. Yeah.
Well, I'd say that's something that, looking as an adult now, would be a fantastic way to spend the holiday.
Oh, great. And when I was working with NBC up in Stamford, David Hobbs and Lee Diffie and I would go to a local diner, which was called Curly's Diner in the middle of Stamford. It's a wonderful, very old school style diner that seemingly has been there forever. And the lady that run Curly's, wonderful. She was very friendly. I mean, in many ways, she reminded me of Auntie Phil, but her name's Maria. And Maria, well, we got into a conversation about Christmas and whether or not she was going to close and where she was going for a family. She says, no, I open every day. She said, I open on Christmas Day. And I just invite as many people as want to come along, those who have got nowhere else to go or those who can't afford to go. She said, I don't charge anything. I just have anybody that wants to come into the diner in Stamford on Christmas Day, I'll give them Christmas lunch.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that fantastic?
And she probably has a ball. And couldn't think of a better way to spend her day.
I'm sure she has a ball. And although, gentle listener, you can't see this from your vantage point, behind you there, Kevin, you'll see some fresh mint is growing on my little potting table there.
Oh yeah,
that fresh mint was given to me by Maria.
Really?
Yeah, from her diner. She says, "Take this with you. It's a very easy plant to grow." She says, "Grow that, and you'll always remember me." So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, so the fresh mint growing on the table is from Maria.
Well, also behind me, we can hear some. I think the critter that was in the bushes is starting to do his construction work back there.
Yes, it's the trash man has arrived to take our garbage away.
Lovely.
Yeah, which, well, proves it's live.
We are
usually
live.
have these wonderful sounds of nature down here, but today we've got the bin guys here.
Well, Merry Christmas to the refuse collector as well.
Merry Christmas to one and all. Yeah. Yes. What other traditions did you have with your family or friends? Did you get together with your friends at Christmas and do some special things, or
no, not as much. I mean, once school let out for the break, you weren't literally, you didn't see him until the next year because you were done through the New Year holiday.
Right.
So you'd say bye, and I'll see you, after the turn of the new year, and not really that many were my age that my parents hung around with. So we got to see some of the family and such like that. But, watching the Christmas specials was always a big deal.
Right.
Which they weren't always on Christmas Eve, but they would lead up. You'd always have again, we've talked about it here before, how good the Charlie Brown things were.
Yes, yeah.
You always have the Charlie Brown special and all the Rudolph and all that. And it's ones I still nostalgically love today. And hopefully I'm getting my daughter to enjoy it more and more.
That's great. And an American tradition, it seems to be an American tradition. I say that because I can't ever remember doing this in England, is to go to the cinema on Christmas Day.
That's, a lot of people will get up, do that, especially if they don't have little kids, and stuff, and it's more adults and stuff, and they get up, probably have breakfast and coffee, and eventually have their Christmas dinner, and then they kind of look around at each other and go, I'm bored. And off we go to the cinema.
Let's go to the cinema.
And actually, having friends that used to work in it, and some, they're still maybe stayed in that industry, there's this ongoing battle of let these people stay home with their family instead of being at the cinema. So there's that dichotomy of having a place to go, but yet these people have to work it that are away from their family, having to be there to pour the popcorn and pull out the tickets.
Yeah. Yes, it's a great time, Christmas, because you also have to be aware that for many folks it is a time of, if you're on your own, it is a time of isolation. It can be quite a trying time, I think. So I think it's important to just get out amongst the community and pop round and see your neighbour and say hello and that sort of thing. I think that's a good thing to do. I like the idea of that. Yeah,
actually, that was kind of one of the things that my parents did. They called them pop calls back in the day, and then it was around Christmas, and we'd have Santa and play a little bit, and then we'd have our lunch, and a lot of times we just pile in the car, and the three of us would go visit people we hadn't seen maybe in the year. Older folks and stuff like that.
I think that's it's a good thing to do.
So we'd spend the afternoon, and I'd drag along whatever toy or whatever and keep myself entertained.
Yes. Yes, with the feeling that whoever you were going to visit would be fascinated by this toy as well, no doubt.
The 80-year-old lady that we were visiting really didn't care much about my Battlestar Galactica book or whatever it would be.
Of course, you couldn't quite understand why this was so, but it's the Battlestar Galactica book. Why are you not fascinated by this?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, again, thinking of Curly's Diner in Stamford and Maria, had to an extent my Auntie Phil in Derbyshire opening the pub or opening the diner. Looking back on it now, of course, I think this is an extension of exactly what we're talking about. It was that idea of welcoming the community in and sharing Christmas with friends or those you don't really know that well, just sharing the day. I like that idea a lot.
Well, yeah, your ideas change. Like as a kid, you maybe hear a glimpse of a thought of someone that maybe they didn't stay home for Christmas. They went skiing or they went somewhere else, to stay the weekend at a lodge or something. I remember thinking, how crazy is that? And now I look back and go, well, that actually kind of sounds appealing. Go do something a little different, and especially if you don't have kids, and stuff like that. It's more of an adult thing, but
Another great Christmas tradition, and we touched on it earlier on by saying Boxing Day, which I guess is not a celebration in the United States.
Yeah, we've heard of it, but...
Right. So Boxing Day in England, to the best of my understanding, was always... it's the upstairs, downstairs... Downton Abbey, is that where we got that right with that program?
Downton Abbey,
I think that's right. Do I have that right? Anyway, the gentry and their serving staff would celebrate together on Boxing Day, whereby the staff would have to, the staff of any big country house. And please, gentle listener, not the home that I grew up in, that's for sure. But the staff of any big country house would obviously be serving all Christmas Day, taking care of the family. But on Boxing Day, to an extent, the roles were reversed, and the upstairs of the house would entertain the downstairs of the house.
Oh, okay.
The handing over.
I've heard the name of it, but I never knew the tradition.
Right. The handing over of the box, and hence Boxing Day, doesn't come from the sport boxing, but from the wrapped gift box, would be from the family to the butler and the chef and the cook and the gardeners, whoever it would be. It was at that time of reversing roles, if you like. And I've even heard tell, though how true this is, I don't know, that the family, the landed gentry of the houses would cook lunch for the staff on Boxing Day. It was the one day of the year where they would reverse roles.
Well, I'd say it was, again, every individual manor would have their way of handling it. Some would do it to an extreme extent, and some would be minimal, we'll get it done.
Yes, I suspect that the House of Windsor, for example, in England would not be cooking for their staff. Then I might have that wrong. I can't quite see the Queen putting on an apron and knocking up a, egg and chips or something for the staff. But that's the idea. But the other great tradition that happened on Boxing Day in England, although it has now very much gone out of fashion, was the riding of the hunt. Every local county, all counties in England, would have the horseback, the hunt. Red
traditional fox hunt?
Fox hunt would happen on Boxing Day. That was, yes, absolutely. Usually at midday on Boxing Day.
Which I'd imagine in England could be quite cold.
Yes, it would be, yeah. But this was I mean, I can remember going with Dad, and he was a big fan of the hunt. And we would follow the hunt in the car. So, and a lot of people did this, so the hunt would set off, and the hunt close to where we lived was called the Quorn, Quorn. There's a little village quite close to where we live called Quorn. And I think 2 or 3 members of the royal family actually had connections to the Quorn, as it was known as. And the Quorn would ride on Boxing Day. Whether or not they caught a fox, I don't know. I think the foxes were way too wily for that most of the time and just stayed out of the way. But they would ride in a fox hunt, and a lot of the local families would try and follow along in the hunt and follow along in a car. Yeah, it was just not over the fields, but obviously around the lanes and road to try and see where the hunt was going. But now fox hunting, of course, is banned, technically banned in England. So the killing of the fox via a hunt is no longer allowed. But the hunt, as a social unit, I still think that exists, and the hunt will gather together and ride on horseback, and I'm sure they would still do that on Boxing Day.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. Well, there we are. Look at that. How time flies,
Absolutely.
Kevin. We must curtail our little conversation today down at Lake Wylie. But gentle listener, once again, thank you for joining us. It's always fun to chat, especially this one. It's been a nice subject. Time to sign off. So, Kevin, sign us off.
We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.